What happens when Donald Trump walks into an airport unrecognized and treated like just another traveler? A single mistake by the staff spirals into a moment the world will never forget. Stay tuned to see how one man's calm composure turns into an event that shakes the terminal and the world. Donald Trump walked into the airport, his gray blazer slightly wrinkled and a plain red tie tucked neatly into his shirt. A worn baseball cap shielded his face, masking the identity that usually commanded headlines. He moved without his typical entourage, blending seamlessly into the crowd. To anyone passing by, he appeared as just another traveler carrying a modest suitcase. He approached the check-in counter, where a young woman in a sharp uniform sat typing furiously on her keyboard. Without looking up, she snapped, "Next!" Her tone made the word feel more like a command than an invitation. Trump stepped forward, sliding his ID and reservation details across the counter. She glanced at the information briefly, her eyes narrowing. "This doesn't look right," she said, her voice thick with suspicion. "Are you sure you're in the right line?" Trump raised an eyebrow, his expression calm but firm. "It's all there. Double check." The woman smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Sir, this line is for priority passengers. Economy check-in is over there." She pointed dismissively toward a longer, slower-moving queue. "I'm in the right place," Trump replied evenly, his voice carrying an authority that clashed with his humble appearance. Her patience visibly thinned as she leaned forward, lowering her voice but not her attitude. "Look, if you're not supposed to be here, you're wasting everyone's time. Either step aside or I'll call security." The people in line behind him began to murmur, their irritation growing. A man in a business suit muttered loud enough to be heard, "Great, another entitled traveler holding us up." A woman nearby chuckled, shaking her head. Trump didn't flinch. Instead, he spoke softly, his words laced with a calm confidence. "You might want to reconsider how you're handling this. A mistake here could be bigger than you think." The woman rolled her eyes and picked up her phone. "Security to counter 3, she said sharply before hanging up. Within moments, a tall, broad-shouldered security guard appeared, his demeanor as no-nonsense as the woman's. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, his eyes darting between Trump and the staff member. "This man is refusing to cooperate," she replied, crossing her arms. "He doesn't have the right documentation." The guard turned his gaze to Trump, sizing him up. "Sir, if you can't provide the proper credentials, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." Trump met his gaze without blinking. "Everything you need is already in her system. I suggest you take another look before making assumptions." The guard smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but rules are rules. Step aside, or we'll have to escort you out." Trump let out a quiet sigh and adjusted the brim of his cap. "All right," he said, picking up his suitcase. "You'll figure it out soon enough." He walked away with an air of calm that seemed to unsettle both the guard and the staff member. From a nearby bench, a young man nudged his friend, whispering, "Doesn't that guy look familiar, like someone from the news?" "Nah," his friend replied dismissively. "If it was who you're thinking, there'd be cameras all over the place." Trump found a quiet corner in the waiting area, sat down and pulled out his phone. After a few taps, he made a brief call. "It's in motion," he said, his voice low but steady. "Let's see how they handle the fallout." Back at the counter, the staff member moved on to the next passenger, but a seed of unease had been planted. She glanced toward the waiting area, where Trump sat scrolling through his phone, looking like an ordinary traveler. Yet something about him gnawed at the edges of her confidence. What she didn't know was that her decision had just set into motion something far beyond her control. The hum of the terminal was punctuated by the occasional crackle of announcements. Donald Trump sat quietly in the waiting area, his cap pulled low as he observed the flurry of activity around him. Passengers rushed past, oblivious to his presence, their faces glued to their phones or lost in their own concerns. A faint smirk touched his lips as he noticed a nearby overhead screen flicker briefly before resuming its regular schedule of flight updates. Back at the check-in counter, the staff member who had dismissed him earlier was finally relaxing into her routine. She processed a few passengers, her sharp tone softening slightly. That was until her supervisor, a middle-aged man with a permanent frown etched onto his face, hurried over, clutching a tablet. "Where's the man you just had escorted away?" he demanded, his voice low but urgent. The staff member blinked, startled. "What man? Oh, you mean the one with the cap? He didn't have proper documentation, so I sent him away." The supervisor's face darkened as he thrust the tablet toward her. The screen displayed a news headline, accompanied by a grainy photo of Trump taken earlier that day. Donald Trump spotted traveling alone. Unusual developments raise questions. Her face paled as she stared at the image. Wait. No. That can't be him. Why would he be here like this? It is him, the supervisor hissed. And now every major news outlet is picking it up. Do you have any idea what kind of attention this is going to bring? Before she could respond, another staff member rushed over, his expression equally panicked. There are agents at the main entrance asking questions. They're looking for someone who matches his description. The security guard who had escorted Trump away earlier now stood at the edge of the terminal, glancing uneasily toward the waiting area where Trump sat. He seemed to debate whether to approach but hesitated, unsure of what to do next. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, a teenage girl nudged her mother, whispering, "Mom, isn't that Donald Trump?" Her mother glanced up, dismissing the idea. "Don't be silly. Why would he be here without security?" The girl, unconvinced, pulled out her phone and snapped a quick picture, sending it to a group chat. Within seconds, responses flooded in. "No way! That can't be real. Zoom in. Look closer." Trump remained composed, his phone resting lightly in his hand as he scanned the room. A faint buzz of commotion had begun to stir in the terminal. Whispers floated through the air as passengers started noticing him. Some pointed discreetly while others raised their phones to record from a distance. The unease grew stronger when a group of men in dark suits entered the terminal through a side door. Their movements were coordinated, their eyes scanning the crowd. One of them approached the security guard who had dealt with Trump earlier, whispering something that made the guard's face blanch. He nodded and gestured toward Trump's direction. At the same moment, the overhead screens flickered again, this time displaying a new message. Special broadcast announcement. Former President Donald J. Trump to address the nation. Live in 10 minutes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were immediately pulled out as passengers began recording the screens, their murmurs growing louder. The staff member at the counter froze, her tablet slipping slightly from her grasp. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It really is him." Trump, now fully aware of the growing attention, stood up slowly. The simple act carried an air of authority that silenced even the loudest whispers around him. His gaze swept across the terminal, pausing momentarily on the staff member who had dismissed him. She visibly flinched under his piercing look, her face turning crimson. He stepped forward, and as if on cue, the agents moved closer, creating a perimeter around him. Passengers instinctively parted, giving him a clear path as he walked toward the terminal's central area. Pausing near a small group of travelers, he addressed them directly, his voice steady but commanding. "Stay where you are. What's about to happen isn't just about me, it's about all of us." The cryptic statement hung in the air, leaving the passengers and staff frozen in place, their curiosity mounting. Outside, black SUVs began to line up near the terminal entrance, their presence confirming that whatever was coming next was far bigger than anyone could have anticipated. The terminal was alive with a mixture of whispers, frantic typing on phones, and the faint hum of camera shutters. Donald Trump stood at the center of it all, his presence commanding yet calm. Around him, agents in dark suits formed a loose circle, their earpieces buzzing with updates as they maintained a vigilant watch over the growing crowd. The overhead screens, now showing a countdown to Trump's live broadcast, added to the tension. The bold timer read 5:00, each second ticking down like a drumbeat echoing through the terminal. Passengers exchanged confused glances. A middle-aged man near the snack kiosk leaned toward his wife and whispered, "What do you think he's going to say? Is it a political stunt or something else?" His wife shook her head, clutching her purse tightly. "Whatever it is, it's clearly important. Look at the agents. This isn't a joke." Meanwhile, the young girl who had earlier recognized Trump continued filming on her phone, her hand shaking slightly as she whispered into the camera. "Guys, I don't know what's going on, but Donald Trump is literally standing in the middle of the airport, and there's a live broadcast in 5 minutes. What is this?" Trump, unfazed by the flurry of activity, exchanged a few quiet words with one of the agents. The agent nodded and stepped away, his voice crackling through his earpiece. Nearby, the security guard who had escorted Trump earlier stood awkwardly, clearly unsure of his next move. Back at the check-in counter, the young staff member who had dismissed Trump was still frozen in disbelief. Her supervisor, visibly sweating, muttered under his breath, "We're going to be all over the news. This is a PR nightmare." The staff member stammered, Should we apologize? Should we do something?" The supervisor shot her a glare. "What good would that do now? Just stay quiet and hope we don't lose our jobs." As the countdown hit 3 o'clock, a sudden hush fell over the terminal. The tension was almost tangible, the air thick with anticipation. Trump moved toward a clear space in front of the large windows overlooking the runway. The agents positioned themselves strategically, ensuring the area remained secure but unobtrusive. A soft murmur broke the silence as a boy, no older than 10, broke free from his parents and approached Trump cautiously. His mother's panicked voice called after him, "Timmy, no, come back." The boy stopped a few feet away, looking up at Trump with wide eyes. "Are you really going to be on TV right now?" he asked innocently. Trump crouched slightly, his face softening. "That's right, young man. But it's not just about TV. It's about something bigger, something important." The boy tilted his head, his curiosity unfiltered. "What is it?" Trump gave a faint smile. "You'll see in a few minutes. But I'll tell you this. It's about making sure people like you grow up in a world that's fair and strong." Before the boy could respond, his mother rushed forward, pulling him back gently. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said, her face red with embarrassment. Trump straightened and nodded, his expression understanding. "No need to apologize," he said calmly. "He's asking the right questions." The interaction left the crowd buzzing. Phones were raised higher, fingers typing furiously as live streams captured every moment. Trump's cryptic words only added to the mystery, drawing everyone deeper into the unfolding event. As the timer reached 0:30, the screens flickered again. The broadcast feed cut to a sleek podium, the U.S. emblem prominently displayed in the background. A bold headline appeared, "Special address by former President Donald J. Trump." The murmurs reached a crescendo as Trump stepped forward, standing directly beneath one of the large overhead screens. The agents took their positions, and the crowd collectively held its breath. The clock hit 0 and the broadcast began. Trump looked up, his face reflected on the massive screen above him, and started speaking. His voice carried through the terminal, calm yet powerful. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to witness is not about me, it's about us. It's about our future, our values, and the choices we make together as a nation." The terminal fell silent, every passenger, staff member, and onlooker riveted by his words. Whatever was coming next, they couldn't look away. Donald Trump's voice echoed through the terminal, steady and deliberate as the live broadcast began. The crowd, which had been buzzing moments before, now stood silent, eyes locked on the overhead screens. Phones remained raised, capturing every word, while others watched with rapt attention, their curiosity outweighing any impatience. "For too long, we've let small moments of division grow into larger problems," Trump began, his tone carrying a weight that demanded attention. "We've ignored the signs, dismissed the voices, and let fear dictate our choices. Today, that changes." The camera zoomed in on his face as he spoke, his expression unreadable but resolute. In the terminal, people whispered among themselves, trying to piece together what this could mean. A man near the coffee stand muttered, "Is this a campaign announcement or something else entirely?" Trump continued, addressing not only the crowd in the terminal but also the millions watching online. "This isn't about politics. This isn't about power. This is about accountability, about reminding ourselves of who we are and who we want to be as a nation." Back in the terminal, the young staff member who had dismissed him earlier felt her heart sink. She leaned toward her supervisor, whispering, "Do you think he's talking about us?" "What happened here?" Her supervisor shook his head, his face pale. "I don't know. But whatever this is, it's bigger than you or me." Trump paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to amplify the tension. He then stepped forward, breaking the fourth wall by looking directly into the camera. "Earlier today, I experienced something that millions of people go through every day. Something small but not insignificant. A moment where assumptions were made, where dignity was overlooked." The air in the terminal grew heavier as people exchanged uneasy glances. The agents around Trump stood motionless, their eyes scanning the room for any signs of disturbance, but the crowd remained captivated. Trump's voice softened slightly, but his words carried the same weight. This isn't about me being treated unfairly, it's about the culture we've created. A culture that too often looks past the individual, that forgets the humanity behind the face. In the corner of the terminal, the teenage girl who had been filming earlier whispered into her phone's camera, "Guys, this is insane. He's talking about what just happened here. This is way bigger than I thought." Outside, reporters had gathered en masse, their cameras focused on the terminal as news of the speech spread like wildfire. Hashtags like #Trump address and #moment of change were already trending, drawing viewers from around the globe. Back inside, Trump's tone shifted, becoming sharper. But here's the thing, we don't have to accept this, we can change it. It starts with small actions, everyday choices, respecting others, even when we think it doesn't matter. Because it does. The crowd in the terminal nodded along, some murmuring agreements. Even those who had been skeptical earlier seemed drawn in by his words. Trump glanced around the terminal, his gaze settling momentarily on the staff member who had dismissed him. She flinched slightly but didn't look away. Moments like these remind us of the values we claim to hold dear: respect, fairness, and accountability. Today we take a step forward, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who's ever felt unseen. The live feed shifted, showing the terminal crowd watching him in real time. The audience at home could see the diversity of faces, from weary travelers to curious onlookers, all captivated by the unfolding event. Trump ended his speech with a quiet but powerful declaration. This is the beginning of something bigger. Together, we will remind the world what it means to truly care about one another. Thank you. The broadcast ended and the terminal remained silent for a beat, the weight of his words settling over the crowd. Then, a smattering of applause began, growing louder and more unified until the entire terminal erupted in applause. Some even stood clapping as if they were at a live event. The staff member at the counter wiped away a tear, whispering, "I didn't think it would feel like this." Her supervisor simply nodded, his own expression a mix of relief and awe. Trump turned to the agents surrounding him and nodded. "Let's go." He moved toward the exit, the crowd parting for him once again. People reached out to shake his hand, thank him, or simply capture a glimpse as he passed. Before stepping out of the terminal, Trump turned back briefly, locking eyes with the staff member. He gave her a small nod, an unspoken acknowledgement, before disappearing into the convoy of black SUVs waiting outside. The terminal remained abuzz long after he left, passengers and staff alike reflecting on what they had witnessed. The young girl posted her video online, and within minutes, it went viral, cementing the event as a turning point in public consciousness. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you or made you think, make sure to hit that like button and share it with someone who loves compelling narratives. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that make you reflect, question, and stay curious. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in this situation? Let's keep the conversation going.